Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I am Gavin and joined by today, Antonio. Hello, sir.
Hello, my good friend. How are
How is it going on this special birthday celebration episode?
you? Yeah. Happy birthday. Oh, now we're gonna get sued because that's a copyrighted song. Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta add trumpets for this one. We gotta get really elaborate. But yeah, we are here to celebrate 30 years of Wild Mood Swings. Woo, 30 years. So yeah, this is a big weird birthday one. Like I said, these later ones start getting where it feels weirder for me because Disintegration, that was a long time ago. I think we can all admit now. Even Wish is starting to feel like fuzzy memories and stuff, but I was like, I don't know, man. This one doesn't feel like 30 years ago. I mean, it does seem like a lifetime ago in one hand, but that's like that's longer than James Dean was alive, man. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so it's a lot of years, but yeah. So we're gonna take a look at it. We're gonna treat it a little special celebration of Wild Mood Swings and go over some of the struggles it's had over the years. It's a very divisive album, I guess, and people stand by their hatred of it. I think it's grown though a lot. It's probably one that fluctuates. We were just saying on people's overall ranking of Cure albums and stuff. It is one that I'd assume even for people that weren't happy with it or still aren't happy with it, it has changed positions a lot over the years, where it's not
for sure
one that you can just straight. I kind of feel like in Star Wars nerd talk, it's almost like the prequels where right. I was initially like, ugh, then it sours big time for a little bit on a few, but then over the years, there's things that kind of make it cooler again, and you can revisit parts of it. You're like, this is pretty good. It's like,
and then to go a step further with that nerdism, you're welcome, Scott. Yeah, it's also like when stuff comes after those in the sequels. That have worse storytelling, you appreciate them more, just the same way Wild Mood Swings got sandwiched in between, arguably one of the best Cure albums and a string of 3 albums that were disappointing. So as time goes on and you listen to the records that came after Wild Mood Swings, you're almost like, okay, let me go back to Wild Mood Swings. This wasn't as bad as I thought because then we got some really bad. So I think that's one of those factors.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like you're sandwiched in between, Kiss Me, Disintegration, and Wish, and then Wild Mood Swings, then Blood Flowers, The Cure, 413 Dreams. So it's like you got these 3 amazing records in a row, followed by 3 disappointing albums, and you're in the middle of that.
True.
So its positioning in the lifespan of the Cure's albums is interesting.
Yeah, that was actually a point I had on there, and that totally fits even more so with the timeline of it as part of its struggles and stuff. And but yeah, I mean, and going to on that point right off the bat here, even the songs that really do work on this, when we hear them like now in the set, since that like Want. You really can see that fucking holds up with every Cure song pretty much, and there are a handful of the ones on here that are just like, yeah, that's a fucking great classic Cure song. I mean, I think the real faults with this is that it's just a weird, not cohesive album, which, they embrace, right. He tries to make that the theme of the album, but at the same time.
It feels like you're listening to a compilation of B-sides, and some of them hit fantastic. Some of them are like good, and could use a little more love, like a B-side shit, sometimes does. And then some of them seem like demos. So it feels like a compilation of B-sides where if you just listen to it for track and try not to like hit it as a big cohesive unit, it's not as bad as it seems. But I've also found myself like the more times I spin it and the more times I listen to it, like even in preparation for this, I'm like, I don't mind putting it on and let it roll, because now we're also in that time frame because of streaming where we don't always listen to full albums in a row.
Right. We're a little
So I
more
think having
conditioned for hopping
right,
around and yeah.
yes, for playlists, for mix things that Spotify makes me, and then I listen to those all the
Right.
time. So I think my brain has started to reset to where an album doesn't have to have that flow as much anymore,
Yeah.
because I'm just conditioned to like hitting play on what Spotify is suggesting for me, and it bouncing from like The Cure to the Ramones,
Right.
to Metallica, and then to Ryan Adams. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, so
Yeah, he
I'm
can
like, right. It doesn't bother me as much now, I think, when, as much as that, CD or record nerd where you're like, no, man, by
it's
track
gonna
4, it
be
starts to get weird. Like, it's
yeah.
supposed to go up here and down there
Down
and then
there, take you
start
on the
like this.
emotional journey of
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
And
it
they,
does to a certain degree. I still love that, but like the idea that, and that's where the 30 years helps probably
I
because we
think
have
so.
done that, so many
Yeah.
fucking times at this point. We've listened to it from start to finish, and it's had its ups and downs, but like now, it's like it doesn't hurt to just bounce around on it, and like listen to the ones you want, make a playlist, and we'll get into sequencing issues and stuff, and
Yeah, yeah.
and
And
and I
it
think the
also
other big one is that the Cure's so good at cohesive albums that it's a weird thing for them to have
right.
one like this, or it's like what?
So one of the things that it still does really well, like the rest of their great records, is starts great and has a beautiful outro. Like, so it still has that beginning and ending song that
Yeah.
kind of encapsulate a record, which is something that they, historically do very, very well. So even though some of that sequencing might be off, I do think there's a good, like, it does have good bookends.
Yeah, and that's, as we learned from Robert, something that's very important to him to have like the good start and finish. And I don't know if it sticks true to what he said about that's how he starts writing, like where he knows he
Yeah.
has the album, because it's
Yeah.
hard to
When he
say
has
with
two
this.
songs that he says, like, one he knows can open it and one that can end it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. I mean, he seems to have some very strange, or different rather, I'd say, songwriting, like, things that he does, throughout the years. I've heard him say multiple things where I'm like, oh wow, like,
yeah.
oh yeah, no, so it's, that's why he's one of one.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into some more of those struggles here too, but on the top, let me just announce that May 6th was the release date, 96 in the UK. The US, we got it on May 7th, 1996. The 13th was the first single that came out a couple, maybe 2.5 weeks before on April 22nd. We just celebrated the anniversary of that single. Mint Car will come out in June, is the follow-up single. Strange Attraction in October, and then by December even they're putting out Gone as a single, which is kind of amazing to see that, definitely had fizzled by that point and they're still putting
Yeah.
out that fourth single. It was just that time really in that level of a band, of course you're going to put out 4 singles. But yeah, we'll get into if those were the right choices or what, but I feel like they just give up on singles and bands a lot faster now, as far as the fact that it was like album came out in May and they're still putting out the final single in December for an album that didn't totally blow up the charts or anything. That's pretty good. So
Yeah.
I think that was probably just their level as a band that probably carried that more. And through these notes, like I was saying to Antonio before we started, there was a DEK magazine that came out in 2021. It was a 25th anniversary special. Kind of made the social media rounds for a minute there, but I don't really know how many people got it or not. So I'm going to touch on a lot of the quotes and stuff from that because it was pretty cool, where Robert in later years reflecting back on Wild Mood Swings and stuff. And, it's kind of in line with a lot of what Cure fans say and stuff, and some cool, maybe not as often heard factoids and stuff about the song. So with that, let's dive into what I thought was maybe one of the first hurdles for this album. And it was basically just that it was coming out in the mid 90s. And Robert had a quote saying, "We were written off basically, but we still sold 1 million records." I was really happy with it. I think it's a very underrated record. It was savaged over here. And Cure fans were a little wary of it because it wasn't exactly what they wanted. And then he goes on to say in 1996, we played a massive festival on the west coast of America. Oasis and Chemical Brothers were the support bands, and NME managed to review that show and not even mention that we were playing it, let alone headlining it. Britpop might have had a huge effect over here, but it might have marginalized us in a way that we hadn't suffered since the early 80s. But everywhere else, people were laughing about it. In the UK, we were portrayed as part of some old guard, and I remember thinking, I'll be fucked if I'm going to let that happen to me. So that's something that's come up a lot. Do you feel like the Britpop mid-90s, they just kind of missed the wave at that point? And I mean,
and here's the thing though, like in the US, it did peak at 12 on Billboard.
Yeah.
So,
pretty good.
And I do think that it was a very difficult time, and I do get everything that was hitting at that point. So I do feel that between the Britpop and even just the what kind of rock was coming out at that time, definitely was not did not very much align with what the Cure was doing.
Right, because in the U.S. we had the grunge had already kind of come and gone, but it was all the grunge residue and whatever.
The weird, and the cheesy bar songs. You were starting to get like like Lit and like all that stuff, and
all the mainstreamed alternative bands that weren't really even
Goo Goo
alternative.
Dolls were starting to take over. You know what I mean? So like you're talking about a time in music that once grunge had faded was not that good. I still will stand by it that the 80s decade is what I think is better music than the 90s. Even though the 90s did have some, obviously because everyone's going to lean on the Nirvana thing, but there were plenty of bands in the 80s that made huge changes and shifts. I mean look what the Cure did in the 80s. I mean, you want to talk whether they're goth or not, it helped solidify that, blow that culture up into a mainstream phenomenon, so
I definitely
similar to what Nirvana did, for grunge, because that music was happening. It's just that they're the ones that got it to the masses.
Right.
And I mean, even the other thing that I think that's interesting too is this was the first record where they were mixing the computer-based stuff with the real stuff, because the technology was changing so much. Like Cubase had come out, and I know they used Cubase on this record, but as well as they still used live strings. As I kind of did a dive on this. So even from a production standpoint and a producing standpoint and what was being played on the radio, you were getting a lot of stuff, like you said, the Chemical Brothers and stuff that was super electronic.
Right.
So there was this huge shift in, the way things were not only being recorded, but because of the way they were being recorded, you were adding new and different and weird things that you maybe hadn't before. So I think it was a lot of this was new to the ear and confusing, and now that time has passed and we hear so much of that, it's probably not as prominent of an issue for listeners, which is why I think it is better received today than it was then.
And this was the first time, just a lot of levels of, this was the first full 4-year gap, I think. Let's see, 90. Yeah, because he didn't get the full 4 years between Disintegration and Wish. That was only like 3, right. And we had like Mixed Up in there to tie us over and Entreat and everything. But so this was the first time they did take a pretty long break there by those standards. A lot of shit had changed, like you're saying, just that was beyond the Cure even. And even within the Cure, they had huge changes because, they lose poor old Boris, and technically I'd lump Dave Allen in on that too. So, I mean, there's a lot of change within the band. We didn't even really know it at the time. But Simon was almost out, he was having troubles by the end of Wish and almost didn't come back. So
he was really sick too. I had read something where he fell really ill, like literally days before recording. So right. I mean, I feel like every everything was stacked up against them going into this record. So the fact that this record didn't come out as the biggest pile of crap that they've ever done is actually a huge feat.
Totally.
And makes me wonder if you took this group that they have right now, because eventually, you know, Jason did become the drummer from this, and you know, and you know, you get Reeves afterwards. So it's like, if you take this current group, went back into the studio and did these songs, it's a different record, man. It, you know, like in a good way. It's so I mean, with all the chips stacked up against it, the fact that this wasn't a complete pile of crap, to me, I think is phenomenal.
And you know, just the momentum. This is the
kind of stuff that should have broke the band up. If I'm being honest, you know, like,
and I think a huge part of what kind of broke them up in the sense of, you know, they never flat out said it, but a lot of like Paul and Boris being exhausted with the band at that point was the Lowell trial had happened before that. And I think that really kind of hurt not only their momentum, but just like, you know, they've said in various quotes something along the lines of, if this what is this what it means to be like a big band, is where we all hate each other and sue fucking each other and stuff, you know, like who's next, you know? So I think they kind of were like, I'm ducking out while we're good, because you're coming off the heels of Wish, which was exhausting for them, but at the same time, their biggest mainstream hit, you know, even bigger than Disintegration in a sense of like, you know, commercial success, you know? So, you know, that's a lot to rebound from, and how you do that is going to totally affect, you know, and you're trying to live up to that. There was pretty much no way they were going to top Disintegration and Wish. So it was always going to be a gradual step down, I think, you know? So, yeah, it's pretty wild. I said it was just crazy time, 96 anyway. Like, so where were you at? End of high school? Cause I was end of, our first year of college. So
it was the tail end of high school for me. And yeah, I remember it being a huge deal. I remember the posters being in every window of every record store.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for me, this was one of those, you know, now I'm a little bit older. I've got a car. I've got some money in my pocket. This was the first time, like, I was going to the record store myself. I was paying for it myself. I was like beyond pumped. So I think there's an emotional attachment, I think, to this record for me, because I remember going to Tower Records. Like, I remember seeing the poster in the window, walking from my car to the front door. I remember running in and grabbing the CD, you know, and those big, long, stupid things that they had to click to open the CD, you know, like, you know, so, you know, and then you run the edge of the CD across something to open it in your car to quickly get that stupid wrapping off to listen to. Yeah, you know. So I mean, for me, I just remember being like so excited for this album. And you know, was it a little different? Yeah, but my initial listen wasn't actually disappointment. If I remember correctly, I remember being, you know, I think pretty freaking stoked. I mean, let's be honest, the record starts out phenomenal. I mean, this might be in their top 5 best opening tracks. You know, so like, but then again, you know, 413 starts out great, and we all know.
And I do remember definitely like kind of like Club America. There was definitely moments where I was like round and round. I was like, I don't know about that one, but okay, I'll just keep going.
Yeah,
it was definitely
again, those did fit with what was going on pop radio at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, in The Cure, we'd had fucking Love Cats at that point, and you know, I mean, we really have seen every kind of even jazzy Cure, you know, and shit like that. So I mean, nothing was too absurd. That's why people. We'll get into specific, the 13th being the leadoff single. So we had already heard that. And I remember that being like, whoa, this is a weird thing to come back after 4 years with. But I was totally still on board. I was like, whatever, it's fucking Robert being kooky Robert, you know. And definitely, you know, like Donald and stuff was a lot harder on it. You know, we had similar thing where we both went out to the record shop and got it and went back to his house. I remember being a little disappointed because I wanted to go home and still like read the lyrics while I, you know, but we just put it on. And I remember he definitely was a little more like, I don't know about this. Like at first I'm like, it's fucking cool. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but let's look at the top pop mainstream radio hits of 96. Don't Speak by No Doubt.
Yeah.
Because You Loved Me, Celine Dion. The Magarena. uh, Killing Me Softly by the Fugees, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Deep Blue Something, Ironic, Alanis Morissette. So, like, let's be honest, like, there was a lot of crap in 96 that probably, you know what I mean, just influenced maybe some of the production and some of the decisions in some of these songs, but they weren't as bad as fucking, or as weird as what else was kind of going on, like Mariah Carey, Always Be My Baby was like the big like summer hit, Smashing Pumpkins 1979, that's when that, I think, right, that's
it must have been.
That's another one that came out like around then. So like I said, Radio was kind of 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, it was kind of like there was a lot of cheese and experimenting with different mixing genres and sounds going on at this time.
And that's what I always love about The Cure, I think, and I kind of do that from an early age. I think even was that they'll never shoot themselves in the foot by being cheesy. I mean, they're always gonna be weird, no matter how they do it.
Yeah,
like even Friday I'm in Love, it's like the most like whatever cheesy song, but at the same time, that bridge of Eaton in the middle, he just throws in enough, and his voice is just weird enough. Or even if it's like cheesy pop or something, Strange Attraction is a great example of that, where it's like, what the fuck's going on with some of those sounds and stuff, but like, the story he's telling is sweet and weird, but it's still like, can I use some of your lipstick? Like, this is shit that isn't gonna catch everybody on the pop charts,
Right.
So that's what I love about it.
It's those are the lines that like pull me in and make me feel it's Cure. You know what I mean? Like,
it's something
I love
special that not everyone's gonna get this or be able to really absorb that.
Because even in Return, that weird like video game sound in the background. So So it's like, you're right. Like there's like some weird stuff, but some of this stuff is also coming from the fact that it's like everybody was experimenting with what you could now do with recording. Like it was a huge, from like 95 to 2000 was this like a whole new door opened up in music production, and people were going crazy with it.
Let's get into the actual record, though, of the initial ambition of it and stuff, because it was weird that usually Robert does have some kind of ultimate vision when he starts these things like Blood Flowers. It's going to be the, whatever, and the, new songs and stuff, of course, Songs of a Lost World. When they really lock into a theme, they do it proper, but like this one was weird in the sense that it was always kind of all over the place. One of the earliest things was that he really wanted to snag Alan Wilder from Depeche Mode for the keys on this, because they needed a keyboardist to get Perry back on the guitar more, and like have a keyboardist in there, I guess, or he just really wanted to work with him. But unfortunately, he said, and fortunately, who knows with the fate of the world, I guess he said he turned it down because he was like, I just come out of Depeche Mode where I was basically having to do everything they told me to. I don't want to be in another band dictated by somebody, so that could have changed a lot, or if you had, but then they did snag Steve Lyons, who had worked with Depeche Mode. So he was going to be the co-producer for this album that he locked in on pretty early. But then pretty early on too, they say that the concept was going to be an acoustic album. Like he says, one of his quotes was, I actually wanted to make it like a Nick Drake album. We approached a producer before Steve Lyons, I guess, Hayden Bendel, who had done like work with Kate Bush and the strings for Nick Drake at one point. And I wanted to do an album with a string section and acoustic guitars. In the end, only Bear and Numb ended up like that. And that's the end of the quote. Of course, like Jupiter Crash and This Is a Lie could have fit that.
I could see that, actually. That kind of makes sense. I'm like, oh, wow.
So I mean, that's cool, and almost, and that's when later in the article he said we should have just made 2 albums, an acoustic one and then a weird jazzy whatever the fuck, that like Gone and 13th fall into and stuff. But weird though to me, like I don't know how much overlap, since he says that they tried to get that other producer. Where did Steve Lyons come in? Because if you're not grabbing somebody that worked with Depeche Mode to make an acoustic strings album, I would think, like maybe once he abandoned that idea is when they fully enlisted Steve Lyons. But so that's a huge just angle, of just the approach of the album. I think that's when he just decided he was going to pick a little of all the things they had been working on and just do the wild concept. Huge thing that we've mentioned in the past is the drummer situation. And I didn't realize until reading that article that Boris actually did hang around for a lot of like the demos and stuff, at least for this, to kind of almost give his 2 weeks, the extended version of like, he didn't want to totally leave them hanging and stuff, and actually helped them set up some of the demos for this album. But yeah, he said we were using different drummers, and I was thinking, why not just invite other musicians in to play strings and trumpets as well if we're already using the session drummers. Let's really go for it. Let's make everything completely different. So that's when they kind of locked into the idea, which I think is probably one of the faults of this album, is having the multiple drummers, because you really do kind of hear it. Like,
oh,
even though
you
I can't,
100%.
it's just like kind of not settled, even if it is like a surprisingly different kind of Jason beat than what we've come to know from him. It's still weird because they're auditioning while recording, and so it's like, in the end, I think it's, let's see, Mark Price, Ron Austin, Louis Pavlo, and Jason Cooper are the ones credited on actual songs that made it. There was something I found later with the B-side Waiting, was a guy named Bob Thompson.
I think that my biggest issue with this record, even over the sequencing, is the inconsistency in the sounds. Because some of them, like Round and Round, those drums sound like demo drums.
Yeah.
And even the vocals are so upfront, and the drums sound so like in a big open room that I'm like, it feels like, oh, you didn't finish producing it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, there's some of that on this record that are my biggest nitpicks on that. So yeah, the difference in the drum sounds, even straight up from these different drummers, they are all going to have different preferences in snare drums. The snare drum sounds across this record are all very different. you know, or maybe just because you're not sequencing all the songs done by Jason, all the songs done. So it's more noticeable because it goes back and forth. So that is one thing that, it is a, did do a negative to it, is the drummer situation, without a doubt.
Yeah, like Strange Attraction. Like, who the fuck played drums on that? Because that might have been. That might have actually been Jason, but like the snare on that one kills me. I didn't really catch it till I was like listening to it this time here, and it's just like, it's like this like tin. I don't know. It's just that really kind of 90s shit. It was real
the 90s Metallica.
That. Yeah,
like
just
drum
like
snare.
like it did. Yeah, it was really weird because it's like. That's a weird one. We'll get into the specific songs, but that one I feel like you really could save just with a different recording or so, like the tones, sure. Everything was just like, oh god, so like, why are you choosing this? But yeah, pretty interesting. And of course, at least they settled on Jason, and I think that's a lot of the cohesive. I always credit Dave Allen and Robert for producing it that way, but that string of albums in the golden era that are so cohesive, even when you're not playing similar songs, is because Simon and Boris are just so fucking tight together, and Boris has that specific style that you can hear, and it kind of carries it over. And I guess one of the main topics too is that Robert said he wanted this album, once he embraced the wild nature of the whatever, he was going for Kiss Me again, because Kiss Me's like that, really, where it is kind of all over the fucking place. But with whatever the fuck they did, the magic of the production there, all of them are cohesive. That's always been one of my huge compliments for Kiss Me, is that you can have a song like Why Can't I Be You and Hey You, and then also have Just Like Heaven, and somehow they're like totally cohesive. And One More Time sounds like it could be a early Disintegration kind of song and stuff. So I mean, it's all in there for those, but like for some reason these don't mesh together. Like it probably is the different drummers, the production, all that stuff. But along those lines, I always compared this album to The Top kind of in my head, just because it is more Robert calling the shots. It's a little more hodgepodge. The band isn't a band, really. They're not really, you don't even know the drummer or who's the drummer. And so I always had a lot of Top comparisons, but in that article, he compares it more to Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Do you have one that you would compare it to more similarly?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it does feel a little more kiss me, but I think,
Yeah.
I understand also the top portion of it because, you're getting, like we said, there are a lot of weird, like backgroundy instruments in this and the horns and although, horns is something they've always kind of dipped their toe in, but I do see what you're saying. Yeah, this is more of like Robert directing with a supporting cast, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where I had it. Just like an even score when I tried to compare them. I was like, well, Kiss Me has more. It's more like Kiss Me because it has co-writes too. Like even though
Yeah.
Robert's calling the shots, Simon brought in like the bass line for Mint Car and a bunch of others. Perry brought in This Is a Lie. There's a lot of them you could definitely feel the Roger influence on
Oh yeah.
some of those, and so a lot more with that. Even though Robert has the control, the diverse styles in music, pop ones, bummer ones. So it is more like Kiss Me in that regards. But then the top, because of the vocal experimentation too, because like that was something he was doing all over the top that we were saying he kind of overdid it even a bit on the top. And this one, it's the first time where he's going back to that using the Club America voice, and even like
Yeah.
13th is kind of like, like where he's throwing like weird little mumbles out and stuff. And,
Yeah, I remember I
then,
did read something somewhere where it said Rolling Stone had noted or said that it sounds like Robert Smith had borrowed vocal tricks from David Bowie and Iggy Pop because he would drop to his lower register periodically in these songs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if they were trying to knock him or not, but I mean, to make a comparison for Bowie and Iggy Pop is like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, those are two of the greatest
Exactly.
fucking musicians
Yeah,
ever.
you can't really knock him for that. Yeah.
Like, God damn, let's go.
He said it in that DEK thing too, and he's going through each song, Club America. That's kind of what he was going for more, even though at one point he said that's his American voice. He was trying to use like an American, because they're all like kind of characters in a lot of the songs and stuff too.
Yeah.
And he said, but it was going for like a Bowie vibe. And I kind of get that, and it makes me like it a little more, but at the same time, I don't know. And I think it stands out weird, like I was saying, comparing it to Kiss Me and Top, because he hadn't really done anything like that for 2 albums at that point. With their 2 arguably best albums, Disintegration and Wish, were very like, this is the fucking Cure kind of thing. And now we're getting this kind of, let's try some weird stuff, it's cool, but at the same time you could see why it doesn't quite land in the successful range as good as like Wish.
But then again, I feel like, hey, I mean, listen, it's called Wild Mood Swings,
right?
It's like he almost prepared you for it and was like, listen, this is a wild, all over the place, moody, makes no sense record that has songs on it that I believe in, so it's like, I'm like, you know what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't mad when it came out. I think I did fall out of love with it for a little while.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it more and more all the time. Like even going through the listens on this, I'm like, I really do like this record. Kind of makes me happy. Like like I've said it before, I put it on like when I'm like cleaning the house and stuff, and it's got like like some like dancey vibes in it. I'm like, all right, this is cool. It's not none of the songs are like hitting me in that like super emotional point where I don't want to be like caught in my feelings or emotions. It's like
so maybe like the last 2 songs, and that's a great way to just end it on the,
exactly.
So it's
it's like kind of brings me back down. So
yeah, it is more of a genuinely fun album. People always kind of put the wrong light on Wish for that, just because of Friday I'm in Love and Doing You Unstuck. I feel like Wish is really fucking moody and like it's like not a fun record really, but everybody always kind of acts like it's this overly pop album, and this one is, like even with the just weird shit, like the 13th is fun and like Gone, in the right day, and even Return can sound pretty good on the right day, but
I mean, and then I think that's a lot of my initial like write downs on the songs, like track by track, is fun. Like fun is a word that I kind of like went to multiple times on some of these tracks,
That's cool.
And that's okay. It's okay to have fun, guys.
Yeah, especially even Robert's.
Yeah.
And lyrically, kind of taking a side road here. It is weird. I caught on these listens more where maybe it doesn't land for a lot of people in the sense that I felt like for the first time, because he's always done that where he'll write the lyrics from like a book's perspective or a character,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
always a little more convincing, like, where it feels like it's him, and I feel like on a lot of this one, he is kind of telling stories a lot more, even if he is in like first person while he's doing it. But like Club America being the obvious ones where he's like, this character kind of, this is a lie, even though
Yeah.
that's like a one he's just said it. Yeah, it's weird because I don't agree with it. This idea of monogamy isn't the way and shit. Like, or it's just like what? So you're kind of like, okay, it's cool. I get what he's doing, but it gets hard to attach yourself to him. Even Strange Attraction just sounds like a cool story, but I'm not really believing that more than 20% of it is real of anything, because it's like, who the fuck are you like writing
well, I went
letters
down,
to? And,
I went down a little like dive like that, and somewhat like I think it's like alluded to the fact that it's about like fans, and some of them that it started out very like innocent and like, yeah, like I love you, and then
yeah,
it gets to become a strange attraction
right.
in this back and forth, where now it's like, all right, now you're showing up in front of the coffee shop I'm at
Right.
when I'm not even on tour, and now you're sending me like really weird stuff to my house, and now it's becoming, this is not okay, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a metaphor for that. So when I read a blurb kind of about, that song being, and it made so much more sense, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
it works.
okay, I can see that, I can see where he's going, like,
Yeah.
if that is the truth too. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, it does. It's, and a lot of them, yeah, they just feel a little bit more obviously disguised as like a story. I'm sure all of them have like at least a 30%
yeah,
sincere autobiographical or whatever, even something like Jupiter Crash. I'm sure most of that happened, but like in that Just Like Heaven kind of way where she didn't really fucking die in the sea or whatever at the end of the
yeah,
song. but at the same time, yeah, it's just weird. I just wonder if that's what makes it harder to click with people because everyone loves to, get so involved in the lyrics and
yeah,
stuff for him or feel like that it's him pouring his heart out. But the ones that do work tend to be that way, like Want and Bear and Ocean and stuff like that. Are even Mint Car, he sounds sincerely, gleefully happy, like
yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's he sells it on that one for sure. It's like he seems really happy.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of fun on this record, and there's a lot of beautiful on this record. Some beautiful
Yeah,
melodies, some gorgeous strings,
yeah,
some like, like, so it is a wild, crazy, emotional, not emotional roller coaster, but I think more of a a feel like a, I don't know, a
yeah.
vibe. It's more of a up and down vibe, like roller coaster.
Yeah, because yeah, I think musically it is pretty spot on, which is kind of surprising. Where the production and the lyrics kind of dip on this one. When there's a lot of the songs where the lyrics might not be his greatest work or anything, but yeah, even like on 13th when I was listening to that just the other day, it was like I love all those little horn riffs and
Me
stuff. Like
too. And I
they're really
normally get
good. It's
annoyed
like
by some of them, but they're done
yeah,
so well on that track. And that track just, it makes me want to like dance and drink drinks on the beach.
yeah. It's like that one.
Like there's, yeah, something like it. I'm like, yeah, let's go. I want
Totally.
to, hey,
Even
mamacita.
gone, it's kind of cool. And that
Yeah.
like, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
It's,
not
it's,
really what I want from the Cure, but it's great.
but
They're all
listen,
like,
when he leans into a feeling, he does do it better than other people, but
yeah,
it may seem awkward for them, you know, like,
exactly.
oh, this is the Cure. But then again, I mean, like, let's be honest, man, like over these years, there's like 50 different faces of the Cure from a sound
Yeah,
perspective. So, I mean, I think it's one of the things that makes them the best band ever.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's just whatever you gravitate towards. Because on a certain aspect, I definitely love that they're doing these things as opposed to like a tired version of and that was kind of always my complaint with Blood Flowers, where it just sounded kind of like a tired version of trying to do Disintegration or, type songs that don't, it's kind of like Cure by Numbers at that point or something, or some of them are, he's trying to go to the well on what they are good at and can do in their sleep, or,
yeah, and I
it's
think that might
almost
have
like,
been the downfall to those next three records being like the critique of the chaos of Wild Mood Swings might
yeah,
have just put him into this. Fine, I'll here's a song and a concept and a production. I'm gonna
right.
go in and do it. So and
That's kind of
then
what we said on our Blood Flowers. It was almost too much of an overcorrect, where that one's like
yeah,
super fucking concise and but
exactly.
and
And
not
then
fun at all, kind of
but
thing.
then you had the biggest break from 413 to Songs of a Lost World, and Songs of a Lost World came back to be like righted the ship, you
Yeah,
know. So I mean, I don't know.
yeah, it's
There's something
pretty
to that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to probably the biggest debate topic people love to do for this album, Robert included, actually, after reading that DEK again. He, the sequencing or the delivery of the album, however you want to put it, could it have been different album just by shuffling it, swapping out ones? I guess on the top, it's kind of like, maybe arguably for me anyway, the last great batch of B-sides too. Like some of them are kind of unmemorable, but like there's a few really good ones in there that blow my mind that like didn't make the album. So like if you switch some of those in, I think he's at a point in this, where he is the head of the ship, more than so than ever, and nobody's challenging him as much. Or maybe he's not listening, because that came up a lot
Yeah, that's
too.
true.
So or he thinks that he's listening, but he's not, and but yeah, I love some of the B-sides for this, and just sequencing. Even Robert said that, his kind of big takeaway from that article in February, or I guess this was even after that article, 2025, Robert admitted Wild Mood Swings failed to resonate as much as he had hoped because it was simply 2 songs too long, which is great point. I'd almost say you could say 2 songs too long and could have swapped out a few songs, but
Yeah, or
but
even just reordered the song so that there was a flow.
yeah, so
You
something
know.
there with the sequencing that people love to, we've talked about a million times, but I highly recommend now the idea of with Spotify or Apple, whatever you listen on, you can make your version of Wild Mood Swings and mess around with the B-sides in the order. It's fun and it changes it. I'm really actually now aside from listening to it straight through for this, whenever I put it on now, I put on my version of Wild Mood Swings, which is not drastically different, but I just cut out like Round and Round and a few of the ones that bug me, Return and stuff, and I swap in. I guess the most notable ones are like Ocean, and I like that Adonis
Yeah.
one a lot. Used to Be Me comes in and out sometimes, where I have it in there, sometimes I don't. Um, Pink Dream I think is great. I love that one. I feel like it isn't finished the way it is, like because they just kind of decided it was going to be a beat. I think he felt it was too close to like a Mint Car rambly, because it has like that kind of in between days acoustic guitar and
Yeah.
stuff. But it's
Right.
really cool melody, and almost could be a single if you kind of tone down the blowjobbiness references. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
kind of like the whole
True.
sucking on this and that, and the little
Like,
slurp
ooh.
sounds at the end. Yeah, it's like, okay, Bob, calm down on the
I was
the
like, where
blowjob
were you
reference.
when you got inspired to rank this?
Yeah, he's hanging out in Rio a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I have it as track 2 on mine. I kind of did my playlist where I reworked it closer to the flow of Wish, where it kind of starts out, with Want, a chorus, and then goes into like the high, and then it has like the longer one. Adonis is kind of like a JV from the edge of the deep green sea too, and you really
Yeah.
could just put like Mint Car where Friday I'm in Love is, and and it rides out. So I recommend everybody do that. Scott's also on Apple, so he made one years ago that I still have saved there, and he pretty much did the same thing. He got it down to 13 songs and put like Pink Dream, Adonis, Waiting, Used to Be Me. He ended
Yeah.
it with Burn too as the 13th song, which technically counts because it was before this, but I felt like that kind of really made a mark to Cure fans as the Crow thing, and it was a couple years ahead, so it was like almost a bonus track kind of thing. You could throw it on there just to have a total banger of a closer, but I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I never would argue it on a playlist. And it just adds like yet one more drummer on there and a whole different feel. True. So yeah, I don't know. Have you ever done that? Made a
I haven't done it with this one, and now I want to. Now I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun to do after this. See if it flows for you, because a lot of them, that's a kind of running joke, I think, over the years with the podcast, where everybody says this every time we bring up Wild Mood Swings. Is like, oh yeah, they just need to cut a few songs, switch a few out, but then like everyone's always kind of like different on what you would cut out. It's never 100% obvious. Like numb. I can't stand that song. That's like one of my it was like probably my least favorite Cure song until about Self-Titled came out. I think for some reason it's just like fucking grates on me. It's just too obvious on the nose.
You know what? It's on the nose. It's like haunting for no reason. And again, that one production wise sounds like a demo. It sounds like an unfinished idea that needed tweaking. I agree. It's probably it is. It's my least favorite song on the record, I think.
Yeah.
And then like I said, Treasure, I think is beautiful, but I feel like it's not done. I feel like that's not finished. I feel like it needed, just a little bit more. So, for me, a lot of it really just comes down to if there was cohesion in production, and then maybe just a reorder working of the songs, and maybe cut those two songs. And I think it would take this album a little bit further up. But yeah, I mean, some of those B-sides definitely should have been there. But then again, I'm also like, I love even if there are B-sides that aren't on the main record, I almost kind of love that in a weird way, because I'm like, it just...
Yeah, that's kind of their thing. They have also it adds this,
it adds this extra, to it. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
I think the one Ocean really bothers me that it's not on there. Like that's such a classic kind of tipping back into Wish shit that this album needs a little more, like if you threw that one on, especially earlier on, like just to kind of set you, out before it gets kooky with 13th and Mint Car and shit, like it's a good moody one that kind of gets it more in that Wish vibe again, and like, and as far as sequencing, I mean, fuck it, having Club America second is like probably the biggest like idiotic move as far it's just like I don't even totally hate the song. It's not great by any means, but it's long as fuck. It's one of those ones that feels longer. It's like kind of like that voice is just kind of silly after a few listens. The guitars are great, but they're just like, what the fuck? It's very like later Cure where they're all like wah-wahs, like 15 wah-wah guitars going. It's just like, good God. And just putting that second right after what? I mean, it kind of sets the table for what the fuck's next after that. You know, it really can go in any direction, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it's kind of a mistake they'll make even with like Blood Flowers and then Self-Titled, I think for some reason they need to get back to...
What do you have after Want in your version of it? Because I think Want is also a really hard song to follow up that you almost need to just jump into a different vibe. I even feel like This Is a Lie might be better to follow it than Club America, even though it is.
But that's still kind of moody, which is fine.
It's mood, right? You can
keep that vibe going. But I was like, I snapped it out of it. Like again, going for the Wish kind of feel where you have Open, which is this kind of like Want, where it's like a big build up kind of one that's epic. And then it goes into High, which is just like straight up pop song. So I would put Pink Dream there actually. Cause then it's like, let's do a pop song there, then do Ocean, which is a little more like a part, like a wishy kind of thing. And then Adonis has more of a Edge of the Deep Green Sea. Then you can get into like the 13th and Strange Attraction and Mint Car, like a doing the Unstuck kind of run, and then
because it's Jupiter interesting Crash. Too, because Mint Car doesn't even land where it would be on the B side of the vinyl, where you almost feel like it would have been, like a lead off to a side two. So even that placement vinyl is a little strange. Vinyl. This is actually the point where vinyl wasn't a big deal. So this is the era that nobody gave a shit about it. I was still involved in it because at that time in the punk and hardcore scene, bands had 7 inches more than they had CD demos,
Yeah.
because I think it also became cheaper to do. You could do smaller runs.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense.
like there was, I mean, that's what started me in vinyl collecting.
Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting. Yeah,
And
so that might be a thing too, because you're like, well, you're not flipping it over. This is when CDs ruled the world,
yeah.
and they had become more affordable too, because at first CDs were expensive.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, that's the one I wasn't sure where to put it. This is a great spot for CD. This is the first, I would say, official CD era Cure album. Because, like, Wish, for me, I definitely just got on CD, but I know, like, pretty much everyone I know had a tape of it. But
right.
did you buy this one on CD first?
CD.
Or did you have a tape for it?
No, CD. Yeah, this
Yeah,
one was
that's
definitely
right.
CD, because
Yeah,
I
you said you had to get out of
remember.
the
Yeah,
plastic
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. And if I remember correctly, it was a bigger. Was it a bigger case, like a jewel case? I feel like it was one of the fat jewel cases, because I
nah,
also
just a regular. I mean, they might have
was it a
had that
regular.
version too, but yeah, just a
Yeah.
plastic.
No, but you know
Um,
what it was? I think this one had a big booklet. I remember the booklet being a little bit more. I don't know. I
yeah,
gotta go grab it. It's
many.
been a while.
But it was funny though, the idea of one sequencing and Victim of the 90s were a huge factor that I never hear people bring up, is that every fucking 90s out, especially by 96, the whole too long thing is strictly because everybody was having at least 14 songs on a CD. Some would go up to like
Right.
15 with the hidden
Because you
track
could
and the,
fit more on
yeah,
there
you're
and
just
without
putting
it being
them
a
on
double.
there.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, Robert said, oh, I should have cut two, like almost beating himself up over it. It was like, no, man, it was like everyone was fucking, like almost every 90s album when I listen to it now, I'm like, there's at least 3 songs you could fucking cut off this thing to get it down to
Oh
like 10 or
yeah.
12
And
songs
then,
would be
yeah,
great.
you had Smashing Pumpkins doing double
Yeah.
CDs and like,
Right.
yeah, no, you're right. That's a good call. I didn't.
Because yeah, it's just, and this was the first time and pretty much the only time they really fell for that, because then even by Blood Flowers they trimmed it down to 10 songs, where 2 of them were like fucking 10 minutes long or whatever. It's kind of that Songs of a Lost World approach, but at the same time, at least he recovered from that really quick. But yeah, I feel like all these, a lot of times bands would have like the same song, but this is the acoustic version on the same album, the
Yes, yeah.
reprise, or whatever the fuck.
There
It's
was
like,
also
Jesus,
this was
stop.
also the time of that, like the hidden song where
Yeah,
you let like 10 minutes of silence go by and then there's a random track.
just to fill it up, just because you can, and it's like no. So yeah, I think that was a huge factor for that, and just feeling like making the sequence that much harder when you have 14 songs and shit. Of course, the mood is just, you can't keep that up and down flowing, or you can't keep like a whole thing going for 14 songs. So yeah, definitely a factor. As far as cutting songs and stuff too, it is funny when people do make their playlist or whatever. A lot of people end up cutting, which is the 4 singles basically: Gone, Strange Attraction, 13th, even Mint Car. And some people, a lot of people would cut a lot of those, which is odd, because then you get into the topic of, did they pick the wrong songs for the singles? Um, I feel like half of that is true, but maybe not all of them. I think 13th is a cool enough song, like I said, where it could be the song single, but it probably shouldn't have been the lead off one. And he gets into
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
where he was
exactly.
like, after 4 years, and they're coming back, and then you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Or it's all like this mariachi
Yeah.
band and shit, it's
But
like, what
even
the
like,
fuck?
I mean, even Mint Car for me like gets a
That,
little repetitive. And I don't know if that's good for a single or bad for a single. Probably good, because you
yeah.
want to get something stuck in somebody's head, but for me, like, I don't love that song like, Chaz does.
Yeah. Have a few notes since Chaz couldn't be with us here today. He wanted to make sure it was on the record. I have them sprinkled into other spots, but Mint
Yeah.
Carr was he, and we'll get into that with the specific, but maybe this is a better spot for it now. Or Robert even says, so Chaz is in agreement with Robert, and I don't even know if he knew that Robert had gone on the record saying he swears it's as good. He says it's as good as Friday I'm in Love. Chaz says it's
Yeah.
better than Friday I'm in Love. But Robert also said that that was the reason why he didn't want it to be the first single, because Chris Perry did. but he said he didn't want it to look like they were trying to just do Friday I'm in Love Part 2.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Which makes sense, but it's been 4 years, and Friday I'm in Love wasn't even the last single off of Wish. You had Letter to Elise like as a buffer in there. So I bet it's not like he's almost calling himself out where he was just trying to do a Friday I'm in Love radio hit part 2 maybe. But you know, I don't think it's that similar, but at the same time I get that. So maybe, and nobody, you know, it's kind of the old band trick too, is where you don't want, that's their obvious chart topping single, even though it didn't end up doing that. But that was the you don't want to release that first. You kind of always have to tease a little.
I think Want should have been the first single.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was like,
Want should have been like, if you hit the radio with that with that song, I think the sales would have been way.
Yeah, even if you had to do some kind of like pictures of you butcher on a radio edit of it to just make it a little shorter or whatever. I don't think it's too long, but it's, what is it, like 4 minutes or something, 5 at the most. But like, you could trim that down and make like a,
definitely,
because even if it wouldn't have blown up like as a pop hit by any means, it would have got the Cure fans back, you know, like the people, like we're saying, it's been 4 years and a lot of us were either in high school, just starting college, or even just the start of high, you know, 4-year gaps. Or that's why it's weird for me, where Wish came out my freshman year, so that's like 4 years. Then I was like, now I'm college Gavin when this album came out, you know, and like people change a lot, you know, that younger fan base, like you're totally moved on in those 4 years. So like throwing something like Want out there would have totally been like, we still got it, we're fucking moody,
also,
we're cool,
I feel like,
we rock.
I also feel like Want would have been big on college radio, which is, and then you would have kind of grabbed those people back. Like, hey, you know, don't focus so much on getting into beta douchebag, and and come to the record store and buy this awesome record that you just heard.
Cool. And then once you got that, you know, they've obviously heard Mint Car by that point, and then I'd put out like 13th maybe as like the third single, you know, and once you kind of already had heard it if you had the album anyway. And but that being said, it's funny because KC, she had heard like just like Heaven and Friday I'm in Love and stuff, just but hadn't really locked into who the fuck that band was, you know. And she was just starting college too, I guess, her senior year, and she heard 13th and that made her want to buy the album, so she actually got into the Cure because of 13th.
Well, I always kind of joke on her. I do think the
like,
Mint Car video. I do think Mint Car video got a lot of. It was a lot of people's first introduction to the Cure. That you know, because maybe now cable was in most homes. You know, MTV was you know, at this point probably now being like 24 hours as opposed to like going off air at midnight or 1, you know what I mean? Like I think this was a very hot key time for music videos. I you know, so I wouldn't doubt if so many people like Mint Car is that's what got me into the Cure. I saw that video, you know, and I bought that record, and then they went backwards or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's weird for people that had been Cure fans to hear that, but yeah, I totally get it. It's just weird enough and cool, and I get why she was attracted to it for sure. So it's pretty funny though. But yeah, I mean, as far as singles, so Want, were you cool with the other ones being like? I feel like Strange Attraction and Gone just shouldn't have been singles, probably.
I can see why Strange Attraction is a single, but I wouldn't have, you know. You know, definitely, you know, I think Club America, like, you know, I think there's something to that one from a radio standpoint, like standing out amongst the songs that you would be in front of and behind. Again, what was getting spun most on the radio at the time, you know, so it was very weird stuff. Again, the Margarina, Killing Me Softly, Wonderwall by Oasis was the biggest song in the fucking world at that point. But then you're hearing Breakfast at Tiffany's and Alanis Morissette kind of sparked that whole, like, like female fronted, like angry alternative. And then No Doubt also being on top of the charts was a very like time where I think women were really starting to gain respect in the kind of alternative genre. So this was a strange time. Like
right.
when we pulled back, like there was a lot going on. The end of the 90s, music started to get really fucking all over the place. There was some cheese in the beginning of the 90s, but now like if it's like producers and labels were just throwing stuff to the walls and seeing what stuck, because it wasn't so like one noted.
So yeah, maybe it's safe to say there is no magic formula for singles or sequencing that probably would have made it a huge.
Because we gotta take the time into perspective too. And the year and what else was being played and what else was where the labels were leaning into. Yeah, absolutely. Like
all the horns were the right idea, maybe. So who knows?
Right, because even it was a little bit before the ska punk-ish movement, you know what I mean? Like beginning of the kind of the Blink era and all that stuff. So there was a huge shift that was about to happen.
I guess with my revisions and hindsight, sequencing is all to win. Like it bothers me that so many Cure fans ducked out at Wild Mood Swings, like people that would consider themselves, because even when we get like stories now, a lot of people just say, I kind of stopped following them after Wish. And Donald Ewan was kind of that way, and like he would still follow. Of course, we went to go see him on the tours and everything, but like these sequencing changes and stuff are kind of like, I wonder if this would have kept more Cure fans happy, to not put that out as a single. I mean, like I was saying, if Want had come out, we'd all be like, fuck yeah, and not more like, huh? so
exactly. But because it's almost like you heard the single and then you bought the record and you heard Want and you were like, whoa, is this the same album that I'm listening? Like, did I buy the wrong CD? Like, did they pull a trick on me? Like, what's happening?
It's funny with all the decisions behind it, with the production and releasings of things. I made a note that in that DEK, Robert says, I wish someone had just stepped up and said, this album should be shorter. Mint Car should have been the lead single. Don't drag the recording process out. So just things. But that was funny because I was also reading the section on recording this in Never Enough, that Judd Apter book, and other ones I've read, where Steve Lyons, the co-producer, actually is quoting and saying, like, I told him all those things.
Right. He didn't listen to it. And it was recorded in more than one studio as well.
Yeah, I mean, mainly that St. Catherine's,
2 studios, right?
the Jade Seymour thing. And that was the huge thing, too, was this was the first one where they really just took it over. And I think they were always supposed to be in there for 3 months or something, but he extended it to the whole year. He said they were just having these fucking crazy dinners and just living in it. He said he was just trying to have a blast with it. And he was the most fun. He said, I was enjoying myself too much. I should have made 2 albums in that time, the acoustic one and the wild, weird one afterwards. But yeah, I think they just loved that they had the whole different room set up to, you could fuck around with these songs all day. And that's why they didn't even end up mixing it. They ended up having to outsource all the mixes because they ran out of time, even though they were in there for a fucking year recording this. So I mean,
and you can tell, again, the mixes are all over the place, the drum sounds are all over the place, but that's because different drummers were using, playing on it, so different sets, different snare drums, different styles.
And a good quote, he says, Wild Mood Swings was the last time we were genuinely off the wall, when we were still young enough just about to get away with it. So he's saying they're basically still young enough to do something like this and that, which I guess makes sense when you look at 413, or that one's kind of doesn't really have the focus got, convoluted because they shortened it to a single album or whatever. But I mean, this one you're a little more forgiving because they were still just coming off the heels of Wish, and he's only 37, but now standards, he seems like a spring chicken being 37.
I wish I was 37.
I remember them acting like you were saying with NME, maybe they're still like this, but those magazines are fucking cruel. The British ones, where they would just love to build people up and tear down these old people and act like they're, the old guard, like you was saying, where now they're they'd only been around for like 20 years at that point. It's like, Jesus. Moving on from that real quick. In that issue too, he mentioned, so this was 2021. He said that he is hoping to put a reissue of this out further down the road. So further down the road would be 30th would be a good time. Maybe at the end of this year we can.
Yeah, but Record Store Day just passed. I feel like he would have done it on Record Store Day.
Hopefully they just put it out. It's like, good God.
But like you gave us 2 different versions of freaking greatest hits this Record Store Day and not this one, like it was weird.
Hopefully that means they've been getting this one ready just to do on their own, because I felt like the Wish one wasn't part of anything, right? That was just, it's weird that they're not doing it on like the birthday. He's so big on like releasing it, you know what I mean? Like it should be around now if there is a reissue coming out, but so it'll be kind of weird to put it out in like October or something, but hopefully it sounded like it was like totally done, but we're getting back into familiar territory here with Robert. Yeah. It's been done for 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
But it would be cool. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, who cares? But like he says in that article, there are 7 tracks that are finished that have never been heard. So that's like 7 extra songs. They're pretty cool, even if who knows how far along they are or what. And then just by everybody remixing the album, there's definitely, cool mixes, not remixes so much as like dance mixes and shit. I don't want to hear any of that crap.
Like mixed and mastered properly.
Yeah, maybe there's a version out there where like somebody else is playing Strange Attraction even or something, I'm sure like the multiple drummers all did that. So that would be great to have a whole like bonus thing. And then just the demos are always cool to hear, even if there's some really shitty quality ones out there that I have, but nothing.
Even if you went back into the studio and had Jason do all the drums for all the songs and then mix it all in, would be a huge difference.
I know they could probably do that in like a week, but that is a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean like, that guy can play for 4 hours straight without going to the bathroom.
Yeah, so, it really is kind of like you do kind of want the special edition again, going back Star Wars reference kind of thing. Yeah. You just took fucking that out. You could totally make it cooler, but
take out the CGI.
Yeah. And I don't remember how the picture disc, when was that? Was that 5 years ago? Like, is that affordable still? Where people have an affordable version of?
Yeah, well, I think they did a lot of copies of it. So I mean, I bought it. I got it without a problem. When it came
out. I can't imagine people are knocking the door down for it, but it is. I just kind of want all these Cure albums to have like affordable now is like what, $30 still, but it's like $30-$40.
Oh, well, actually, no. Actually, I'm quite surprised on the vinyl here. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
what's it going for?
Like $100 on the picture disc.
On the picture disc? Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, the cheapest I see it for is like 75 or best offer. Yeah, so
with $20 shipping.
yeah, exactly. I mean, an original copy of it goes for a lot more because there weren't a lot pressed.
Yeah.
That was like kind of a big deal.
So yeah, I mean, fucking put it out just for that. If not, just on black vinyl. We don't need
I mean, dude, an original sealed $525.
Wow. Well, mine isn't sealed, but it's original. So I remember just bought it for novelty's sake. I was like, well, you gotta have them all, even back then I was like,
this guy's got one open that's $500 as well. Jesus. Oh, it's a UK press. Maybe the UK press was a little less, but that's insane. But I remember looking and you couldn't get the original US press for like under $200 a couple years ago. So it seems like that actually might have gone up.
Well, yeah, more of a reason to put it out, but I want that double deluxe CD.
Oh yeah, I would take that for sure.
Shit on there, even if it is like whatever, an alt version of Round and Round and Round, I'd be like, whatever. Let's hear it. I know you got it. So let's move on from that. I guess a nod to our boy Chaz. He really wanted to make sure we stressed this is one of his favorite album artworks for this one, and the design. And he calls it one of their best, says Chaz. Agreed. And so I think that all Robert's mention of that in the DEK said that it actually went fairly smooth. Andy Vella took the photos. Those are Robert's actual toys, so he actually he so liked cool. That concept, and it works pretty cool. I like it's a lot of yellow. I like the one like the blue negative kind of thing. I think they were using a lot around the time of that picture disc, but I kind of like that better. The yellow is a little like it's hard to pull off that much yellow on anything rock or whatever, but I do like and he said that the little split-faced clown was cool because it kind of symbolized the split personalities of like Wild Mood Swings and how he's like, who knows? 1 minute he's alternative jazz, 1 minute he's acoustic mopey Robert. So that's kind of cool and does match. What do you say we do a quick plow through of track by track? Like we said, we probably touched on a lot of these already, but a lot of them are kind of quotes pulled from what Robert said, because he did a track by track in that DEK too. I know I keep talking about it, but try to look that up, see what that's going for. It'd be cool for people to they should just include that with the reissue or something, because it was really cool to have a good hindsight Robert revisit it, and because it's weird with these tracks, a lot of them totally disappeared live after this tour. They played them a lot on the Swing tour, but didn't there aren't really many that have stuck around, so it's kind of neat when you can find like those bootlegs and stuff where they cover these, because Want basically, Mint Car will pop up occasionally but not much. Jupiter Crash is probably the other most reoccurring one, and then after that, that's it really. I mean, which is kind of surprising that none of them would pop up. I mean, 13th and Gone, and he kind of mentioned that was kind of the downfall of putting those out as singles, is that you can't really recreate those without the horn section and stuff.
Yeah, so you can't do that live. That's
kind of knows that'd sound real dumb on like keyboard trumpets or something.
I feel like Strange Attraction could fit into their current sets.
Let's just start at the top. Want. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement that this is, the true gem of the album too. He said it was the first post-acoustic session song, so maybe it does fit in his theme a little bit more, where once he gets the good opener, he knows, what direction he really wants to take an album when he's got the openers and closers locked in, like he said, for Songs of a Lost World. So that makes sense that would redirect the ambition of the album. So Robert's favorite from Wild Mood Swings, no surprise there. He said it always gets a good reaction live too, especially when the strings kick in. So that makes sense. It's just classic kind of building Cure, where it gets the momentum going, and not much to say other than it's awesome. Chaz's quote for this: "It rules." Make sure you tell the people that Want rules. So there you go, Chaz. It's official. Club America, which you spoke kindly enough of it to say potential single, which I guess is better than most people, myself included, for bashing it all these years.
No, well, I mean, listen, when I say that I think it could have been a single, it was more for mainstream, for the times. Yeah. Because, for me, it's like, it's not a bad song. I don't hate this song, but I don't love it.
Yeah, like I said, I'd like it more if it was later in the album. I think kind of hatred is like that it's in the wrong place for sure.
Yeah, it's like too. I mean, it's kind of like, and here's a weird analogy, but it's kind of like food, where some ingredients in something that you're eating, if it's like too prominent, it's terrible. But if it's just toned down, it's fine. Or you know what I mean, like toned down on the palate. So that's this. It's like too early. It's like too up front and in your face. You know what I mean? Like later on, like where if you've already vibed, to the 13th and stuff, it doesn't stand out. But this is just kind of like what?
Yeah.
So
yeah, kind of like that. I hadn't really thought of that in the sense of like in the number 2 position, because that is traditionally a pretty like regular singles kind of spot, or it's almost you should just lean into it at that point and make it a fucking single, like you're saying. Like definitely, could go there with Gone or not. I don't know, but we have Simon to thank for this one. He brought the bass line in, and it was built on that. And yeah, he said it's a nod to Bowie. But Robert even called it fundamentally flawed.
Yeah. I also did read that it was slightly inspired by a trip to New York that he took for World Cup. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've heard a few very good
it's cited as saying in 94. Yeah. Smith confirmed he went to New York in 1994 to see a World Cup game, which later influenced the 1996 song Club America. Just some of the things that he saw and the things that he did while in New York and here and he just kind of jotted some stuff down that kind of then later sparked so I mean,
rolled into town in a big black Trojan horse.
Yeah, exactly. But he does also say there's David Bowie influence to it.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these are kind of hodgepodge meanings and stuff too, pulling from.
I'm like, what year did I'm Afraid of Americans come out?
Yeah. I feel like it was around then.
95. Yeah, so after that. So it could have been like, instead of him like, being specific of it being about his New York. Yeah. He was like, oh, well, David's singing about Americans. Like, throw it in there.
True. Yeah, because I was like, this is his version of Afraid of Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take Bowie and Trent, unfortunately, before this.
It's definitely.
That's how it rules. So yeah, pretty cool, but yeah, just a weird spot for it. This Is a Lie is next. Perry brought this one in, or at least the core of it. So this was credited as one of his. And Robert said he still likes this one. Feels maybe doesn't deliver because he was singing from another person's perspective, like we're saying. That really works for me. If he did it over, he'd make it more Last Days of Summer, he said, with a bass 6 parts, I'm assuming. So, just kind of
I think this song is beautiful.
Yeah, it is really
I think
nice.
The violins almost are their own hook to the song and their own melody. There's... it's sadly beautiful, you know. Or actually,
that's the version I have on my playlist that's reworked. There's that ambient one that's on the Join the Dots. It's
Mm-hmm.
It's more strings heavy, where it puts all the strings forward. So I kind of like that better. So I always put that version in. And it is weird. And when I was listening for it, there isn't really any bass on that song. Because I remember live, Simon would play guitar on it. It's really weird.
And so I'm wondering if the low notes on the strings were the bass line, and then it probably drowned them out, so they probably just pulled it out.
Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, probably could have benefited of maybe toning that back and switching it in with an actual bass line, is what he's saying too, or something. But yeah, it's weird. I like it though. Definitely kept it on my playlist and stuff. Maybe again, not track 3. It's a little early for it, maybe. But I don't have any problems with that one. Even though, it is got the weird concept of what is the point of relationships? Coming from the guy who's been with his wife since
more like
high school. But and then we go straight into the 13th, and Robert's quote: "Maybe not the best idea to make this the lead-off single. It lowered fans' expectations. It's great by itself, but hard to fit into an album. Plus not being able to do it justice live makes it hard to love."
Yeah. So, this song like feels like you're at a club in Miami with a bunch of people wearing those like Cuban hats and smoking cigars and dancing, like
yeah, totally.
It's a very niche vibe.
It is kind of a fun, debaucherous thing too. I don't know if it's just because the videos so chaotic, it gets that put in your head, but I just kind of always associate it with a fun, like you said, drinking with your in the cabana or wherever, you know. And it's like, yeah, I mean, this whole album too is like going back to your fun idea. I like that because it came out like, I'd get into it with like that first year of college was just real fucking weird for me. It was like my mom had just passed away that summer before. I'd been in that bad car wreck before that. I was just like a fucking 2 years of awful shit going on, and like my brothers were always home and going to college, but that year when this album came out, they went off to school. So for like the first time in my whole life, I was kind of like holding the house down while I commuted to school, and my granddad was living with us. So I was just like kind of feed him when a kid and taking care of him. And then I just discovered the wonders of alcohol. So I was like putting on the 13th and getting fucking slobber knocked with Rolling Rocks and stuff. And I was like, but in a happy way. For some reason, it was like a nice kind of like, fuck this, I'm gonna like be college Gavin now and celebrating my idea of cutting loose was locking myself in the room. Drinking fucking Zimas and Natty Light and shit, like, getting shit faced, listening to Wild Mood Swings by myself. So yeah, real wild stuff. But I mean, but it's weird because that kind of feeling is captured in a weird way in the 13th, or it is this kind of, it feels good,
yeah, because there is an awkward like aggression to it too, although it's poppy. There's like, hey man, like it does punch,
it's fun, cool song. So this one confuses me a little bit more. Strange Attraction, I think, because I like the song. It really is just, I feel like if you switched out like those keyboard tones are just fucking awful. So sorry, Roger, but like it almost has like a calypso keyboard. It almost sounds like a steel drum sound.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You know what I mean? It's like just do that on like a janky old piano or something would have been cool.
Yeah, it's very aggressive on the ears. Yeah,
even that opening swell of the it's like, what the fuck are we doing? And then just swap out some of those riffs with like a kind of distorted guitar riff would have been cool. I think it works so much better that way. And that drum tone, like we said, that snare hit is just painful. Robert said something is missing to this song, so maybe he's in agreement. Something is missing. Two halves, and the second half always lost people live, which kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't drag overly long with the story or anything. But yeah, it is just like how I kind of always feel too, or it just never quite lands. And it was weird. This one always kind of worried me too. Like they played it on 120 minutes live, and when I heard them on the tour live, it was one of the first ones. It just was real thin sounding. It didn't sound right live that we're used to, and I kind of always worried after like Poro left and stuff that they're just not gonna, because I think like this one, 2 keyboards going. I think Perry was even playing keyboards with Roger on this one, so it's just like real thin sounding. It just didn't sound like have that Cure atmosphere that their songs need. They almost needed like a wall of sound behind it, like shoegaze style or something could have saved it maybe. I don't know. I would love to just give it another crack in the studio. So I don't know, is that kind of where you're at with it too?
Same. Absolutely. I think the whole album could use another crack in the studio.
A year wasn't long enough. That's a wonder, like, did they do it like a cool version maybe at one point and then they just kept fucking with it too much?
Well, I was just gonna say that is I think the overworking of something could be where that comes, because then by the time you're so burnt down on how many times you listen to it, you might go, that sounds good, just because mentally you're trying to like move on from it. Because you're then also realizing you probably spent way too much time on
it. Right. Mint Car is next, another hit or miss for a lot of fans, but like we said, Chaz thinks it's better than Friday I'm in Love. I think it's a great poppy song. I wouldn't take it over Friday probably, but Yeah, this one originated from a Simon bass line again, which the bass line is super rad. If you want to just learn a cool bass line to sit around and play, that's always a fun one. Robert still speaks fondly of it, still swears it's just as good as Friday. Not the right time or place for its release, maybe. Robert liked Paul Corkick's mix of it so much that landed him the co-producer gig for Bloodflowers later. So he was the mixer, that one of the dudes they sent it out to, and Paul Corkick did the mix. And of course, Paul Corkick would go on to do Songs of a Lost World too later. So that's cool. So all because of that. Mint Car, it is mixed good. I think that one sounds good. Like that lead guitar part's really cool and balanced with the acoustics. So yeah, vocals are cool. I think the only negative I give on Mint Car is that the chorus just getting the "never really felt so good. Tell me if it only would." Like, kind of just like simple kind of rhymes.
Dr. Susie.
Yeah, I could have used maybe another go of the lyrics on that one, but the verse lyrics I love. I think it's
like I said, it gets repetitive to me, like in a not good way. I mean, it's not that it's that long, but I think maybe because it could be because of those lyrics, because you're hearing those multiple times, and you're right, it is just like a very, obvious simple rhyme words. That's a good point. I never thought of that, so that might be the thing that kind of gets me on that one.
Yeah, but nice spring day with the windows down. That's definitely a fun one to throw on. So
like Iggy, one of my cats, he has this little, like, it was like a little red kind of basket that we had won at a raffle that came with like some alcohol stuff in it, like bar shit, and he likes to sit in it like it's his car, and like Melissa will drag him around the house, and I always picture and hear Mint Car in my head as she's dragging him around.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, the title, I think, I read that Simon had just named his demo that, and Robert kept it there, and didn't ever really know himself, like, the elaboration on that. Any theories on just that feeling of joyfulness of a Mint Car?
I don't know. It's like maybe like he saw one on the road that was like convertible that someone was like having fun in or something. It's weird. I don't know.
Jupiter Crash. This is probably up there with Want, and makes sense that it's the most reoccurring one in the live set. That is the most universally loved one from this album. Robert still loves it. In the mood, he said it came out exactly how he wanted, which is cool.
The melody on this one is so good. It's like it's just like soft. It's like soothing. It's like I'm like, sing me to sleep, Robert.
Yeah. I forget the details, but I remember following that story at the time too. So it was kind of one of the first times where Robert was kind of referencing something that happens in news or whatever that I actually knew about, like since we were kind of in real time with him finally as a kid, I could be like, oh yeah, that was cool, because I remember looking for the headlines of whatever this thing was supposed to crash into Jupiter, and it was a big fucking, like most of these tend to be.
I know.
Like the 3i Atlases and stuff. I'm still holding out hope that was cooler than it is, but at the same time, that was it. That was the Jupiter show. And Chaz wanted to go on the record for saying this was a highlight of the 2016 tour for him. And I always kind of feel like anytime it pops up is kind of a welcomed, like, I'm down with that. I think I've only seen it live once, but once or twice maybe. But that's a good one to sprinkle in. Hopefully they'll get back to doing that a little more frequently. But you cool with that one then?
Yeah, I love that song.
Love it. Round and round and round and round and round. Here we go. This was definitely an initial one. Even back in the day, I wasn't too crazy about this one. Robert even says now it should have been a B-side. Even that's being kind of kind, I think. Apparently Chris Perry suggested cutting it all together, but Robert kept it on the album kind of out of spite. So I think that's where just not go along with what Chris Perry was saying. And he says if you play Round and Round 10 times and every time there is silence after it finishes, you don't want to play it the 11th time. So I guess that's why it's not in the sets anymore. So definitely one of the big skip ones. They should have left that off. I think even if you just cut that and that would have made the album a lot more accessible for a lot of people. So I think that's one of the obvious ones for me anyway. It's weird that it's a pop one that goes nowhere, you know? Like usually it's the kind of floundering mid-tempo ones you would cut, but this way, I mean, it's real short and stuff, so it's kind of harmless, but at the same time it just doesn't really has this weird little whoop 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 round and round and you know, it's just a weird vibe. I don't know. I could do without it, but you have any strong feelings one way or the other?
I mean, it's definitely one that I tend to skip. It also does, you know, like we said, the drums sound like they're being demoed. It feels unfinished. It feels almost rushed. You know, definitely on the lower, extreme low point for me on the album.
And that little melody's the same too. I've never really heard it get officially called out. That little, it's that whole, from another, was it Another Day maybe, or Look at the Window, from the Boys That Cry stuff. Or it's like it's the exact same thing. Almost to the point where I wondered if it was like a Easter egg kind of throwback kind of thing. But I think he just forgot he already wrote that melody. But yeah, oh well. After that, we got Gone, the fourth and final single for the album, which is another one people go one way or another on. We got the more official, like jazzy Cure, you know, which is kind of gets lumped in with the 13th, but that's got more of that like Latino flair, and this is just full on like going back to the alterna jazz vibe he was going for. And it's cool, but yeah, it really kind of does just not fit with anything. There's no album this would have really fit on other than like a full, you know, they probably should have just done like an EP of this kind of stuff and just kept it for that, or you know.
This is a song that grew on me more.
Yeah.
I used to not care for it all. I used to kind of skip it, and now like I like it. I don't hate it. I think it could be better, but it's a fun. Again, I go back to that. It's a fun song.
He says it's a lost gem on Wild Mood Swings. It only faded away just because it was so hard to play live. So I think he's pretty fond of it still. But it is weird. I mean, it just doesn't really have any flow, but it is catchy. I like it's like kind of an unintentional hangover vibe to it. Like I feel like the whole thing of it is kind of like what it's going for, so it kind of fits with that 13th party vibe, where it's the after effect of the 13th or something.
Yeah,
but,
and
like
that,
I said, it is still
that
fun,
trumpet with the cover thing on it, like it works for the song though. So I don't find it annoying. I don't feel that it's out of place necessarily, you know?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a tough one to, because then if you had to do like a whole EP of that or album of that would be too much. I think if you had like 8 songs like that or something, or 3 songs even would be a bit too much. But so that's just still gonna be forever a weird one, I think. Numb is after that, which we agreed that we both don't like, but I've heard a lot of people say that was like one of the stars of this album somehow. I'm like, ugh. I like the violin. He said that's something. He called it the Indian violin on it is beautiful.
I agree to that, and it feels unfinished. It feels like a demo, and that's probably what makes it like, you know, because it has that like hauntingness that we do love from other Cure songs, you know, like. But it feels unfinished.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my big beef with it.
And he always says the songs are about drugs and stuff, but it's just kind of a thing. But this one's just like so on the nose, like we were saying, where he's like saying he's in love with the drug, and it has like that kind of echoing strings too. That's like, like that thing is just like, it's like, I don't know. And the fact that it's about Kurt Cobain too, he said, so that's like, like everybody was doing that in this time, like everybody had their fucking Kurt Cobain song. I know it meant a lot, especially to musicians and stuff at that time, the tragedy of it all, but it's kind of like, fuck it, let it go by this point, It's like, I don't know. Is that harsh to say? I feel like
there's also a part of the song where it goes dun, 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 that reminds me of like that Google Doll song.
Yeah.
And it always
Iris,
just takes
yeah.
and it's got that part to Iris in it, and I'm like, ugh. I'm like, this is weird because it sounds too much like this other song that's like shoved down my throat, especially now that it's become like a crazy TikTok thing all over again. I'm like,
is it?
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
But yeah, so I just always rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it, but so that would be my obvious second pick to scratch. But Return isn't too far behind too. This one always kind of bothered me too, just because it was another weird pop one that doesn't go anywhere, and I felt like it just didn't say anything that hadn't been said better in other Cure songs. And it's like, he says, he said it doesn't say anything new to him either. He said it does mean something to me, but somebody should have said no on this song.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I love that.
But yeah, it's another one that sounded really thin when they played it live too. Just didn't really have all the cool little whatever the hells that the recording even has. It's like the energy's there. Wow, what great energy. But the song's just
You've
like
got great energy.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same for Trap even too, where I like that it's like Cut 2.0, where it's like the angry rock song or whatever, and so that's a weird one too, where
you're just yelling, she's sick of it all.
Yeah, like, it's just like his angry song. So it is kind of, it's good to have one of these on there too. It's a little weird going into like the sweet ending part of the album. So he had weird feelings even about that. Let's see what his direct quote was. It's a really angry song about someone specific. Lol. It jars me a bit too much now. So, it was supposed to be a rock song that accompanied Want. So maybe in that vein, it does make a little more sense. If it was going to be more rockers on the album, it could have fit in. But I mean, I left it on my mix in like a cut kind of position, or it is near the end still. But like, I don't think it works as good as Cut. It's just a cooler song. But no huge complaints with it. But I do wonder. I think he changes the words to it being she and stuff in it, but it does kind of seem like a pretty obvious lol bash song since they were going through all that. It's like, so I wonder how many of these even bear. We were laughing when I initially said that, but it's like jumping ahead. But these kind of songs about lies and all this, and it's like gotta wonder how much of the lol broken friendship bled into a lot of these. But before we get to that, the last two songs, Treasure. I love this one. Like you said, you weren't crazy about it, but
no, I think it's a great song. It's just like it needs more. Like I kind of want more singing on it to make me fall in love with it more. Like it's so I find it great as a background tune, but I want to connect with it more. Yeah. And I think with a little bit more depth to it, it could have been a song that I fell in love with, So I think that's where I'm kind of like, that's where it comes from. It's not, again, I don't skip it. I would only take it off the record if I was trying to trim it down, just because there's not enough meat to it, So if I had to cut stuff, I would cut that, because I don't feel an emotional tie to it, because it's like it's a small amount, so therefore it feels unfinished.
I could see that. Maybe the drum machine factor has something to do with that. He said that they had a very fleeting, when they're tossing around the million different ideas this concept album could have had, when it was just him and Perry really early on, pretty much before they even maybe officially locked Simon back in. they were going to just do a drum machine for every song on the album. He said that they scrapped that idea pretty quick, but this song it still fit for, so they left it. So yeah, maybe if they had like some Boris drums on this, it would click a little more, like you were saying. Yeah, it's definitely got like a beautiful like bass six part and stuff that has a lot of that classic Cure vibes. Yeah, I kind of wish they would bring it back for the live set, because then we could get like more of the full sound. That would be a good one for them to rework up, I think, and put in the live set. Probably not for festival shows, like I was saying after the last episode or whatever. But yeah, it'd be cool. I love it. You know, it was the one that I always really latched on to when the album came out, because it was like right after my mom had passed away, so it was like this song from the beyond, you know. And I was like, yeah. But now that I've grown older and more cynical, I realize it's probably not her speaking to me through Cure songs from the great beyond, but still a sweet thought. So Bear closes out the album, and like I said, this came from the earlier idea that the whole album was going to be acoustic sessions and very acoustic heavy, like this song. Robert says it was just too long. We should have cut it down somehow. And I remember reading some quote somewhere else where he had said that they had tried a bunch of times doing edits on it, and it just never felt right. So he just had to insist that it kept it, because it is just like verse on verse, and then it has like a bunch of fake endings, and it comes back. And I think it's fine. There aren't too many that drag on this album, for all its semi complaints that people do have. None of them are like overly long, and just, you know, like some of those later albums do have those songs where it's just like, God, just end it, you know, like none of these songs feel like they're really dragging on. So I think it's cool, especially as a closer. You can always have that one that is the overly epic, you know, even by Cure standards. If it gets overly epic, as long as it's the closer, I'm fine with that for a Cure album in particular. But yeah, it's just a sweet, cool melody song too. It kind of rambles around all over the place, but at the same time, I think it flows nicely. Do you like that one?
Yeah, I do like this song. It's solid.
Are you cool with it being a closer like that, or do you think they should have capped it off with like a banger at the end?
No, I like it as a closer, because I feel like, again, we talked about this album being like dancey and fun and this and that, and then it has its like slower moments. So I feel like it brings me back down, and then it's over, and I go on with my head. I don't know. It works for me.
And even if you loop it back around to Want, it's a different kind of epic vibe, you know, or that's more of a cool rock build up, you know, where you can start the journey over again, where it's not like some of those later albums with the long song at the end is just like, oof, I can't do this anymore, I'm done. You know? But so yeah, it is like a nice bringing you down after the wild mood swing party, you know. So it is kind of
something to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's all the pieces are there. I think that's what frustrates people, and the sequencing thing is a huge factor of people's debates on this album, is that it's frustrating because it is kind of like one of those movies where if you look at it and think of like how you could have tweaked some of this or that, you know, and it almost feels like the everyday Cure fan could even take a crack at fixing it slightly, you know, by swapping out some songs and some order. You can't fix the production, you know, or the songwriting things or anything like that. But, you know, so yeah, I guess that's where we can kind of wind ourselves down here on this grand birthday party. I think, you know, overall praise, though. We can't leave the birthday boy in the treading water. But yeah, so overall it was funny when we looked back before we started here to record. It was like, well, where did it fall on our combined ranking of albums we did recently, which we all know is the be all end all of Cure albums after we rank it, of course. But
that's right.
With our combined scores, it came in at number 9 out of 14 albums, which is pretty high. You know, it's still like it was ahead of Three Imaginary Boys. We said with the asterisks of not Boys Don't Cry, but Three Imaginary Boys, it's a little above that. 413, Bloodflowers, Top, and Self-Titled. So yeah, I think I would take it above all those. You know, like I said, on the right day, Top would be right there with it, maybe for me. But and even Blood Flowers has kind of gone up and down a bunch of times for me. But I still like have the sentimental value, and I think the shining moments on this album really shine. You know, that does have a few of those just kind of meh songs that we could all cut or do without, but like doesn't really have any like huge stinkers too. That's like there's none that I'm like, oh god, this is like embarrassingly bad, you know? Like they're just not great by Cure standards, you know? So I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like that on your ranking? Do you have your sheet? I didn't pull up the individual ones of. I know it would be above the top for you, but what about the
it's above the other three for me as well.
Yeah,
you know, for me, it's at probably sits kind of around where we were saying. I mean, obviously, it's gonna be below Disintegration and Wish and all. I mean, it's.
9 other albums. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It might be a little bit higher. I mean, it's funny because after giving this like a good couple like listens through before we did this, I was definitely thinking to myself like, I think I do need to like kind of sit down again and just write out the albums in like, what am I listening to the most? What are I mean, Disintegration's by far my favorite. My number 2 kind of fluctuates. It's definitely in the middle for me, I think, and I like it more. It's grown on me more with time.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's the most fixable of the records that are kind of like, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And and it has more highlights than self-titled and 413 and stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think it deserves as much crap as it gets. It's a little bipolar, but it is not a bad record.
Right. Yeah. Do you think it gets a little bum rap then? Is kind of.
I do. I definitely do. And I think it's tough because it follows Wish, and also part of me thinks almost any record that followed up Wish probably would have gotten like, what the fuck,
Right. Yeah. Accused of doing the same too much, or.
Right.
Just wouldn't have been as good or as poppy. Yeah. I mean,
especially
and like you said,
because now they're in the mainstream like it's nobody's business.
Right.
I could see it getting so much slack then, but like remove everything from it and put on all the albums and then tell me how you feel about it again. Because then you go and and you listen to Self-Titled and Blood Flowers and 413 and there's way more skip songs on that and way more songs that are just cringy. So it's like, so it shouldn't be that it shouldn't be that bad. If you were on the fence about it then and you haven't, like, I think you need to go back and you need to put it on. That's my suggestion.
I think it will always be a little better than you remember. Yeah,
I think
totally
so.
agree.
I do think so.
Because, and you get points for the creative risks, especially when you have a full body of work like they have, like even if you don't like it, like we're saying,
been broken up.
Yeah, exactly. Because if
they would have been done already.
Yeah, cranked out the same crap, it wouldn't. But I mean, I think "Gone" is a perfect example of that, where it is like a cool song. It's just whether it's you want that from the Cure or not. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like it's cool.
Again, if that was a standalone like B-side or track on a movie, it'd be fine.
Yeah,
because you're not expecting them to play it live. You're not expecting much about it other than, oh, this is cool, this sounds really cool, and it fit the movie or it fit the just the
compilation or I like that idea. You should have just put those on. That's why I even said about Freak Show, even giving it more credit than it deserves. But it's like if that had just been like some fucking soundtrack song or something, you're like, all right, it kind of sucks, but whatever. It's in that Judge Dredd thing kind of category of like, whatever, that's fine, but being like a single and stuff kind of puts it front and center a little too much. But so I definitely recommend anyone that especially those that did tap out, no judgment, of course, but at the same time, everybody was going through their own shit around 96, I'm sure. But like, if you did fade out, never really gave Wild Mood Swings the due, maybe 30 years on now is the time. And I think you will find a few little gems in there that you never quite appreciated. And maybe a few that you used to like that are just like, ugh, not for me now.
That could be too.
But that's part of the charm. So I think we covered all Chaz's notes too. And I hope you guys out there give it a listen. Go put on your hockey jersey, reminisce. The tour, is a whole other thing. That was a real big tour, the swing tour for everybody. So we won't dwell on that so much since this is the album anniversary. But cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap up there then, if you're cool with that, Antonio.
Yeah.
All right. Good people out there. Like I said, turn it up loud. Have a little birthday cake for it. Put your hockey jersey on and get all your toys out and enjoy the multiple personalities of Wild Mood Swings. So, on that note, we will say talk hard and catch you later.
Bye.
There you have it. 30 years on, Wild Mood Swings, just as wild as ever, keeping us on our toes. Let us know your opinions on this album, if it's changed over the years or if you're holding steady with your initial impression. And before we head on out, I want to kick things off with a giant thank you to the band Born Twins out of Austin, Texas. They hooked me up with a copy of their new album, their fantastic new album, Drowning in Static Fiction. You can get it now at their website or listen to it on all streaming platforms. And you might recognize their name, Born Twins, from previous cover episodes we've done. Most recently talking about this album that concludes with a fantastic cover of Exploding Boy. And years ago, they did a really cool cover of A Few Hours After This that I was real big on. And if you've signed up to the Patreon and received a mix from me, then there's a very good chance that that song was on your mix, because I've been in love with it since first listen. And not only do they do great Cure covers, their originals are very cool, and I highly recommend you check them out. So go find it on streaming, Drowning in Static Fiction, Born Twins. Check them out, and thanks for the copy of the album, guys, if you're listening to this. Let's wrap things up now with a shout out to our Patreon crew, the patreon.com/Holy Hour Podcast crew. That's Craig, Jeff Hilton, Amber, Allison, Jeff Cortland Jones, Donna, Sue, John, Dion, Namicio, Matt Ford, Letty, John Roberts, Colin, Tony, Ben, Matt Fisher, Danny, Coulter, Tom Johnson, Francisco, Arno, Chip, Nicholas, Shirley, Mara, Caroline, Brian, Sean, Jennifer, Craig Hogan, Pete Roberts, Nicole, and John Richter. And of course, Kate over at CureThreads.com, where she has tons of original Cure-inspired designs on a wide range of products. And you can also follow Cure Arts Collab on Instagram. They just had a new theme posted for Robert's birthday, and it was Robert Portrait in the Moon. So amazing artwork was posted over there. You can still see them if you go on over to Cure Arts Collab on Instagram and follow that page and check out all the wonderful art. Get in on the action for the next theme when it should pop up. Scott Kruger is a co-host of the Sarlacc Digest, the best Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. Happy May the 4th. That'll be happening in the lifespan of this episode. Check their live stream out every Wednesday evening, 8 Pacific time. And you can watch it on YouTube and Facebook. And they are waist deep in the Maul Shadow Lord show that just came out and is wrapping up. Super fun watching a new Star Wars show and then getting the full review from these guys. They always have the perfect insight for all the little details you may or may not have missed. And just always a blast trying to predict what's going to happen next and hear their thoughts and theories on it. So if you're a Star Wars fan on any level, go check out Sarlacc Digest. David runs The Obsessive Geek on Etsy. That's a great spot for Cure-related shopping. And you can get your 3D printed recreation of Cure album covers over there as well. Great for all wall decorating. That's The Obsessive Geek on Etsy. Go check it out. Dana is a freelance animation, illustration, and motion graphics designer and is currently welcoming new projects and commissions, so go check out her work at graphics.tv. That's graphics with an X.tv. And drop her a line if you could use her help. Tanya wants to spread awareness of 988lifeline.org, the suicide and crisis hotline with over 200 crisis call centers located all over the U.S. They're available 24/7, offering free and confidential support for people in distress with numerous prevention and crisis resources. So if anyone you know or yourself is in need of help, please don't hesitate to reach out, 988lifeline.org. Lisa recommends you visit Dickens, the coolest venue in Calgary, Canada. Go to dickensyyc.com to get a full listing of all their wonderful upcoming events. And of course, Chaz has another podcast called James Dobson's Bastard Kids, where each week he and Chrissy take a deep dive into the evangelical church, and each week they drop a new episode. So go find them everywhere you stream podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and our Facebook page, and feel free to drop me an email at gavinconner@gmail.com anytime. We got wonderful episodes on the horizon. We got another anniversary, a big one coming up around the corner here. And then we're going to slowly segue into tour talk as the Cure Festival dates begin to emerge. So get yourself ready. And looking forward to covering it all and seeing what our boys are up to for a new round of highlights. Until then, take it easy. Go turn on Wild Mood Swings, Loud and Proud, and all those B-sides, and get weird with it. Happy birthday, Wild Mood Swings.
I will never forget. I will never forget. I will never forget. I will never forget.